Good morning, everyone. Today we're going over podcast episode 8, and this is going to be talking about the end of Oak Street. I also snuck in another movie review in there because I actually got to see a doubleheader this week, and the second film was so surprisingly good that I'm like, I should talk about it here as well. So, first, like usual, we're gonna go over some movie news that came out this week, some trailers, info as well. So, starting off with the news, the Possession remake. We've talked about this on the podcast before, but it said its release date. It's going to be summer in 2027, June 11th to be specific, and that's the Callum Turner and Margaret Qualley reboot of the Possession film with Isabel and Johnny and Sam Neill. So this one's directed by Parker Finn, like we've talked about before. He's the director of Smile, and we'll see how it goes. It's going to open alongside How to Train Your Dragon 2, according to Variety, which to me doesn't seem like that much of an issue considering their target. How to Train Your Dragon kind of appeals to everyone, but in general, Possession definitely does not. Even hardcore horror fans may find it harder to stomach that specific kind of horror. But we'll see how this remake is made, how faithful it is to the original. But certainly different demographics, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. That'll be a fun weekend to watch and review. So definitely interesting news there. Some casting news this time for a show, but very, very popular show, been in talks for a while now, is the Harry Potter show. And season 1 is coming out December 25th. And a lot of people are curious how that's going to go. On one part, it's like, why do we need this? We have great movies with the Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson movies, but we're getting new ones, new Harry Potter, new everyone. But I believe each season is going to cover a book, so theoretically 7 or 8 seasons, depending if they decide to split the last book in 2 again. But the goal of these is, with a miniseries, you can tell more of the intricacies of the book. Some of these, I think it's going to be fun to see some of the differences. There's even the first movie. The first book is pretty small, so the movie didn't have to cut out a lot, but it did cut out some. So I'll be curious to see how that goes. The thing is, people are Harry Potter fans, and it's Christmas time. It's for some reason feels like a Christmas movie, and so people are going to be thrilled to watch it then. That being said, the news this week came out that Nicholas Hoult is going to be playing Gilderoy Lockhart from the second book in the second season, which I'm assuming will come out, in the next year or two after this. So we haven't gotten season 1 yet, but interesting news here. I actually feel like Nicholas Hoult can definitely play a Gilderoy Lockhart character. I mean, Nicholas Hoult is one of those actors that we've seen more and more of over the last few years. Nosferatu, Juror Number 2, he was very good in. The Menu, and most recently Superman. And his performance in Superman as Lex Luthor, weirdly enough, kind of reminds me of Gilderoy Lockhart. I know saying Lex Luthor and Gilderoy Lockhart, it's like two different things, but there is a level of egoism in both characters, and the level of, villainous and stuff. Now, one is played a lot more goofy and, never doing anything quite right, but I think that's a good example for a good role for Nicholas Hoult to diversify and show that he really is the actor he's shown us to be so far. He definitely has impressed me several times. So kind of excited to see him in that show. Curious how the show's even going to go, how people are going to respond to it. But it's Harry Potter. People love Harry Potter. So that'll be interesting. Another news, and kind of more sad news for me in DC, a big DC fan here. Very excited about Lanterns, and Lanterns did just release the first 5 minutes, I believe, of their footage, and that comes out tomorrow. Not from when I'm releasing this, but from when I'm recording this, will be the Lanterns TV show. Very excited about that. But Supergirl released a behind-the-scenes video, and people were quick to notice that it looked like AI was being used for some of the character designs rather than genuine artists and stuff. and they took the video down. So clearly Warner Brothers saw that and was like, well, it's getting backlash. We're going to take that down. And obviously it did receive a lot of backlash. I've seen this, several places. World of Real did mention and bring up, which I thought was interesting. If you go back to October 19th in 2024, there was a AI generated Superman movie trailer that was released ahead of the Superman movie in 2025, and Gunn just responded with a bunch of vomit emojis. So obviously, Gunn doesn't seem to be, and nothing in his creative design has ever seemed to promote AI. And I'm curious, seeing those behind the scenes photos, they were specifically AI generated looks of Lobo, which funny enough is the worst thing you could AI generate, because Jason Momoa just looks like Lobo. So just, take a comic book page and do the makeup that way. That's really what you have to do. But obviously people in this day and age have a very negative reaction to AI, understandably. And yeah, there's some backlash there. I'm curious how Gunn will respond to this, if he'll do anything, or specifically maybe remove some of the characters who are promoting, some of the creators who are promoting the AI usage in that. Obviously, it does not seem like any of the final product they were using AI in, just maybe some of the, like Scorsese says, right, storyboarding and art concept design. I still would prefer if they used real artists, and definitely for a movie that already was disappointing fans in several ways, kind of sad to see it disappoint them once again. A movie that didn't disappoint a lot of people was the first Barbie movie, and that thing was huge. So it's kind of surprising that Barbie 2 is taking a long time. It's been 3 years since Barbie, and Barbie 2 is taking a long time to get into development. Variety was reporting that David Zaslav doesn't want to pay the demands by the actors and director. Clearly, Gosling's become huge. He was huge already, but after Ken, now he's in Project Hail Mary, was huge this year, and then he's going to be in Star Wars Starfighter next year. And so he's been huge, really in the zeitgeist right now. And so, Margot Robbie's been less present in the last year or so, but obviously huge career so far, and is just the epitome of Barbie. And so they have a lot of buying power. Greta Gerwig is obviously very big now. She's a great director. So getting all three of those to agree on what to be paid, both on the front end in the salary and then the back end stuff as well. So apparently the studio has made over 6 offers in the past few years, and all have been rejected. But they have to act fast, because apparently the rights revert back to Mattel if they don't do anything. But because Warner Brothers worked on the first Barbie movie, if Mattel gets the rights again, they can make another Barbie movie, but it would have to be not set in the same world or universe as the very first one that we saw 3 years ago. So supposedly Gosling's asking for $20 million to come back. Robbie made around $50 million on the first movie in salary and back and stuff. So I'm assuming she's going to want more. And I believe Gerwig made also in the tens of millions as well. So lots of demands in pay bumps and back end participation. It's a lot of money, and sometimes looking at actors and how much they get paid, it can feel a little ridiculous for sure. Certainly you want people to get paid well, and you look at something like Obsession with Indy Navarrete, and everyone is like, whoa, you only got paid this much, and it turned into an amazing piece of art. So, you get further in your career, you do deserve more. You've proven yourself more, you deserve more in salary, and I'm sure Indy Navarrete is going to be doing well. We're going to talk about that more later. But kind of surprising, Warner Brothers does have money, and it's surprising they're not backing this. Now, I'm curious if there's something with Paramount being in the play here, because certain movies might, if they're over a certain salary, maybe they'd have to be, backed by Paramount before Warner Brothers can sign off on all the green lighting. But it has to go into active development in 4 months. So that's what happens if they don't. The rights will go back to Mattel if they don't do that in 4 months. So it's made so much money, the first one. I think it's probably worth almost anything to get these people back, because Barbie 2 is going to be probably even bigger, even if it's a worse movie. I didn't honestly think the first movie was anything too special to talk, about, but it clearly affected the environment and certainly helped to have the whole Barbenheimer thing. A lot of Christopher Nolan fans going and seeing the Barbie movie as well, just for the meme. So, pretty interesting. Another news, next to Scarlett Johansson, Jacob Elordi is going to be joining Ari Aster's next film, which is Scapegoat. We know almost nothing about this. There's been reports of it's about a doctor, or it's a sci-fi romance, or it's a more traditional drama. So no clue what this movie is going to be about. But Scarlett Johansson and Elordi, big names, and Ari Aster always have a very creative eye. So I'll be curious to see what that's going to be about and what that's going to be. Elordi did take a break, has taken a break in a while. A lot of his films have been coming out, but this is his first movie that he's signed on to do in a while. So supposedly they're going to shoot that later this year. I don't have much to report on this. Deadline was reporting that Elordi is going to star, but other than that, we just don't know too much. So I don't know. Ari Aster, Scarlett Johansson, Jacob Elordi. I am intrigued for sure. So see where that goes. Also, in other news, we do have some news from D23. So D23 has been this big, it's Disney's chance to talk about their upcoming slate of movies, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, show some trailers. People get very excited at these things. And I believe last year is when we got, although that might have been Hall H now that I'm thinking of it, but Doctor Doom was released, saying that its RDJ was released sometime around this time last year. And this year we're getting a couple news. So first I'm going to cover some Pixar news. And we got some interesting news. So one, we got Incredibles 3 coming, Coco 2 coming, and Ghost Market, which is going to be an original. Not really sure what that's going to be about, but I like my Pixar originals. Hoppers this year was pretty good. I know not a lot of people are going out and seeing them, but it is good. Incredibles 3, first Coco 2. Coco 1 is one of my favorite of the recent Disney movies, so excited for that too. Curious where they'll go with the story. But most intriguingly to me is Incredibles 3. I was never raised fully as an Incredibles kid. I know a lot of people who this is their favorite Pixar movie. I'm curious if they're going to be able to deliver. To me, Incredibles 2 was a little bit of a disappointment. Definitely a little bit more just wedged in its time. But Incredibles 3 supposedly is coming out in 2028. And I should say Coco 2 is 2029. And Ghost Market, the original, is also 2028. It appears that they're trying to do a one original, maybe one sequel kind of thing going forward, which would make sense. Maybe I'm just extracting too much from that, but I've either seen or heard that before, I feel like, and I'm seeing that in the announcements now. But Incredibles 3 2028, it's going to be directed by Peter Sohn instead of Brad Bird. To me, that's a little disappointing. Brad Bird, excellent. I believe he did Iron Giant, Ratatouille, the first Incredible movies. He's been currently working on a movie called Ray Gun, which I'm excited to see. But he is not doing Incredibles 3. That is probably going to be a disappointment to a lot of fans. I'm not saying Peter Sohn is not good, but Brad Bird is so good and puts so much love into these movies that not having him, I think, will be missed. So Peter Sohn he did Elemental. Haven't seen that one, so can't judge much. And he did The Good Dinosaur, which was all right. Now, I have heard good things about Elemental. I'd like to give it a shot. It's one of the few Pixar movies I haven't seen yet. But, and you know what? The Incredibles are so popular. I'm sure something good's going to come out of here. But it definitely has the possibility to be disappointing as well. So that's interesting news for the Pixar slate moving forward. Finally, with this beginning news segment with D23, would like to talk about the X-Men casting. So we've already talked about Samara Weaving being Emma Frost. We've talked about Kit Connors coming in as Cyclops. We know Sadie Sink is Jean Grey. Hopefully you know that by now. The whole world probably knows that. They also released a lot more information. And a lot of this earlier on in the week was a little more cagey, this insider saying this, like there was hints of this throughout the week. We saw Indy Navarrete backstage, not sure what she's doing there, but then this morning woke up and on my phone, sure enough, was the actual video of them announcing it. So we now have, for sure, we know more casting information. So Indy Navarrete is coming to play Rogue. I'm very excited to hear this. Obviously, loved her in Obsession. I think she has great potential, and doing that movie has really just propelled her career. It's propelled Curry Barker's career too. She's going to play Rogue. I'm excited. Rogue's a very popular character. I think she looks the part a lot. I will say that's something I'm finding really interesting for Disney and Marvel. They don't usually seem to care what the original comic book characters look like. And then, which we're going to talk about this more, the casting for X-Men has been surprisingly comic accurate. Like, put a white, grayish stripe of hair in Indy Navarrete's head, and she looks like Rogue. And we talked about Samara Weaving, but she could be the spitting image of, Emma Frost. So really interesting seeing that. But I'm really hoping this will propel her career. Very excited to see her in this movie. Even though I'm not the biggest X-Men guy, the casting that's been coming out about this movie is making me more and more intrigued. It's just a ton of people I love, a ton of people I wish DC would start getting in some of their movies, but Marvel seems to be winning that war and has been for the last decade and a half, 2 decades almost now. So pretty interesting. That being said, I really hope Indy Navarrete also chooses to pick some more niche stuff as well. One thing I thought Mikey Madison did really well after winning Best Actress for Honora is she was very, very picky, and she decided to do The Social Reckoning next. So we really haven't seen anything from her since the 2024, well, I guess 2025 Oscars, but for 2024. That being said, we don't know if The Social Network or The Social Reckoning, is going to be any good. So it could all be a flop. What I do want to say, though, is I really hope that Indy Navarrete uses her fame to do a couple indie projects, do a couple big projects, too, like this. I mean, if she could, just like Scarlett Johansson, just like Zendaya, she's already been propelled more so than even they were at the time, it feels like. But even more so, there's a lot of people who don't watch horror who will be seeing her, maybe even hearing about her, and then getting to see her act as Rogue. That's exciting. In other news, so Adam Driver, he wasn't there on stage at D23, but he did call in or have a pre-recorded video saying that he's going to be Nathan Milbury. I'm like, who's that? I'm not as well versed on my X-Men stuff, but he is Mr. Sinister, which if you ever seen a picture of Mr. Sinister, I feel like, once again, pretty well cast. I think Adam Driver can do a really great job with that. Adam Driver, personally, for me, carried the entire Star Wars sequels. He did such a good job in that, and that's one of the few reasons I do enjoy, or one of the few things I should say I enjoy when I rewatch those sequel movies, even though it feels like they tarnish the Star Wars name. Adam Driver is just so good in it. And Adam Driver is great in a lot of things. He is in Marriage Story, which is heartbreaking, but amazing story. So, yeah, Adam Driver being in this, definitely another boon for it. In other news, Christopher Abbott is also added, and he's Professor X. Now, this is the one I'm probably the most, not sure about, and part of that is I just haven't seen a lot of the movies he's been in, or if I have, I haven't, consciously recognized, oh, that's him. Christopher Abbott played in Wolfman. He's been in Sanctuary recently. He was in The Testament of Aunt Lee. So he's been in a lot of, relatively solid or well-received indie projects, and maybe not the most well-received, but he's been in a lot of indie projects, and people who know him, know his work, seem to like it. I think this is good, and Indy Navarrete, obviously, super popular, super quick rise to fame. Adam Driver, star power and excellent acting skills. Christopher Abbott, kind of a newer face in the bigger picture, in the spotlight. He's been around, he's been doing some projects, but now the world will get to know him as Professor X. And similarly, they also cast Maya Boyd. And I'm like looking up, who is this girl? She looks perfect for Storm, and that's who she's playing. So once again, casting on point with all that. But she's a theater actor. I don't follow Broadway much, but apparently she's Juliet Capulet on the Broadway for and Juliet, and she debuted in Merrily We Roll Along. So she only has like 2 or 3 acting credits to her name, all Broadway style shows. This actually makes me very excited because you see fan casts and it's always the same people. It's like Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Jenna Ortega, all great actors, but we don't see a lot of new faces. And one of the things I think I was talking about even the other week is what I want to see is new faces or faces that people see. So Christopher Abbott, other people might know him very well and love him. That's how I feel like with Samara Weaving. I feel like a ton of people wouldn't really know her name or what she's been in, but being a horror fan, seen a lot that she's in. So hearing that she gets Emma Frost, I'm excited. I'm like, that's Disney using their Marvel fame to good use. It's also probably cheaper to them to get some of these people who aren't quite, on the Scarlett Johansson level, Margot Robbie level of like fame right now, right? So, but that's how it should be, right? The original Star Wars movies, people were not famous. Friends even famously was like a bunch of people who weren't famous, and then they became overnight sensations. So hoping to see that with X-Men as well. Obviously, Adam Driver's established. Indy Navarrette's taking over the world right now. Samara Weaving and Christopher Abbott, newer. But what I like is Maya Boyd, not really been in a film, or not that I can see. A theater actor, I'm sure she's going to do great. And it's kind of a more traditional pipeline, honestly, going from theater actor to film actor. That's kind of unusual these days. But I'm sure she's going to do a good job, and I'm excited to see how she performs, and this could be her big break too. Obviously, you're an X-Men. It's going to be a huge break, even if you go from a no-name to being in an X-Men movie. So it's exciting, and it's setting up the future of Marvel, and it's looking brighter. Now, that being said, some trailers came out this week, and one of them did come from D23. One of the things that does not look much brighter is Avengers Doomsday. I know it's going to make a lot of money. I know a lot of people are excited. I'm still kind of confused, and I really hope I'm proven wrong. None of the trailers have looked that intriguing. We did get to see some Sentinels in this one, which, classic X-Men villain. Could be exciting. See Doctor Doom a little bit more. This one definitely feels more like a cash grab. The new X-Men movie feels exciting. Fresh faces, new cast, moving Marvel forward. And this kind of feels like it's just fan service, getting a bunch of old familiar faces, a little bit like Spider-Man No Way Home, though I did enjoy that, but with just Fox Universe, Fantastic Four, MCU, RDJ's back as Doctor Doom for some reason. Not sure. Now, what I'm hoping they do this, and what they need to do with this movie, is really close off some of those timelines. Let's make it simple again. Let's focus on the shows. Let's focus on mergers, right? Fox, Disney, Marvel, all together now. And let's move forward. Let's see what comes out of this. So it was a fine trailer. But the 2 trailers I did want to talk about today that are just maybe a little more intriguing, interesting. One of them's Verity. One of them's Paper Tiger. So I will say Verity... it's based on a Colleen Hoover book. There's been a lot of Colleen Hoover adaptations. It Ends With Us, Reminders of Him. I believe Forgetting You is also one. I haven't actually seen any of these movies yet, but from what I've seen from the trailers, a lot of them look like some romance usually, and maybe something goes wrong. This trailer was way more psychological thriller than I was anticipating. This is obviously Anne Hathaway's one of her 5 major roles of 2026. So she's having a year, and she was great in End of Oak Street. She's been great in The Odyssey too. So excited to see more of that run. But definitely was not expecting the psychological thriller bend to this movie. So Yeah. Now, that being said, I haven't seen nor read any Colleen Hoover, so don't know a ton. But Anne Hathaway's in it. Josh Hartnett's in it as well. Dakota Johnson as well. It looks to have a slightly, maybe, erotic thriller bend. Maybe not just psychological thriller. Not really sure what's going on. But the logline says Lowen Ashley gets hired by Jeremy Crawford. Lowen is played by Dakota Johnson. Jeremy Crawford is Josh Hartnett, to ghostwrite novels for his best-selling author wife, Verity. That's Anne Hathaway. And she's kind of like in a wheelchair or something, doesn't speak, unable to finish after an accident. So that's exactly what I said. And Lowen uncovers Verity's disturbing truths while residing at the Crawfords' home to work. There's a lot of tension, it seems to be, between this married couple and this ghostwriter. Dakota Johnson, that's just, I guess, her job these days. And just, I believe she comes across a computer file on Verity's computer that is like her biography. It seems to uncover a lot of truths. It looks interesting. Not really sure how it's going to pan out. Most of the Colleen Hoover books have been, hit or miss as movies, it appears. I'm sure there's a loyal fan base. But I will say this, having the more psychological thriller bend definitely intrigues me more than maybe some of the other trailers and movies that have come out. But we're going to see. It's another Anne Hathaway performance. She's having a great year, doing pretty well. But definitely another trailer coming out that seems interesting. Finally, this is one I have been excited for a while. Paper Tiger. We've talked about Adam Driver. We've talked about Scarlett Johansson. They're both in this. Miles Teller is also in this. And I believe it's opening night at New York Film Festival. So, James Gray movie, Paper Tiger. Logline for this is two brothers pursue the American dream but get entangled in a dangerous Russian mafia scheme that terrorizes their family, testing their bond as betrayal becomes possible. Yeah, I don't know much about this movie. I think it's gotten relatively good reviews. It did premiere at Cannes, so 82% Rotten Tomatoes, 6.8 on IMDb, kind of somewhere in the pack there. It looks interesting. I've been excited for this just because of the cast and because of the vibe of the movie. The trailer shows that too, but I have almost no expectations, which is the way it should be, right? Some trailers give way too much information, and this one seemed to just be like, yeah, you're getting to see supposedly a good movie that it's going to be interesting, but I know so little about it. I'm excited to go see it, and hopefully it's a good time at the theaters for that one. There was a scene at the end with like a bunch of people in tall grass that I don't know why so much reminds me of Jurassic Park these days, but that did. It looked really cool. Not sure if that was the inspiration there, but like I said, I know so little about these movies, and so that's one of the hard things with this week's trailers, is they're just kind of enigmas. They don't really say much, and that's a good thing. They intrigued me, both of them. I'm excited to see them, but not like have no clue really what they're about fully. You can make some guesses, but that's about it. They got some fun accents, I will say that, in Paper Tiger's trailer. So, going full in New York kind of style movie. So, now we'll get to some film reviews. So this is going to be interesting. I'm actually going to do 2 film reviews like I hinted at earlier. We're going to start with the first one, and I actually saw these a double header, so I'm going to flip them. We're going to start with the second movie I saw, because the second movie I saw was not what I was expecting to review this weekend, but it was actually surprisingly good, and I wanted to talk about it. Now, like usual, we're going to have a spoiler-free section, then we're going to have a spoiler section. But because there's 2 movies, then we're going to have another spoiler-free section for the other movie, and which is The End of Oak Street, and then back into spoilers. So, let's talk about The Rivals of Amziah King. This film, directed by Andrew Patterson, he's the one who did The Vast of Night, which, honestly, to me, I'd heard good things about it. I watched it. I was like, it's fine. Tonally interesting, but delivery and, like, actual story, less so. This one stars Matthew McConaughey, Kurt Russell, and Angelina Lookingglass, and Cole Sprouse even, too. Has a lot of familiar faces in it. Has Tony Revolori as well. So, it was a fun time. I went in, I hadn't even seen a full trailer, or if I had, it was like a long time ago. So going in, didn't have much expectations in it. It changed my mind on a lot of things. And it felt very different. I will say this is not the most cohesive movie I've ever seen. It's not the most perfect movie, but it was so surprising and it resonated with me so much that I got to recommend it. So the log line for this one is Amziah King, beekeeper, musician, and anchor of his community, hint, hint there, reunites with the former foster daughter, Kateri, after many years apart and fends off threats to his honey business. So, first 40 minutes of this movie, though, are just full of joy. I'd heard from some other people I was going to watch this movie with, like, this is going to be a revenge movie, kind of, you know, crime movie. And you see hints of that. The opening scene, there's like a barrel, and this isn't too much spoilers, but if you don't want to hear anything, you can skip this part too. But there's like a barrel of honey that gets stolen. The police find it and they ask Amziah, hey, can you figure out whose honey this is? And he tries his best to do that. In this, it's a pretty intense opening scene. Tony Revolori's character, Komar, loses his scalp in what are they called? Honey extractor, I believe. And so that part's all pretty stressful. He gets his scalp sewed back on. He's fine in the end. But that's just like the opening scene. And then after that, Kateri comes to town and Amziah reconnects with her. Kateri is his foster daughter from a while back, and they reconnect, and he kind of introduces her to his community and just shares a lot of wisdom about potlucks, the lies and truths of potlucks, the ways bees work in his beekeeping community, how music can bring so much joy. And for 40 minutes or so, it is just sheer joy. It is some of the most fun I've had. There's some really comedic sequences. There's the sequence when he's talking about the potluck food, right? He's talking about the truths and lies in every dish. And there's some hilarious little like cut scenes thrown in there of the people who made or were involved in this food. It's pretty funny. And the music that they play, it's very energetic, very exciting. He gets her to join in and sing with him. And there's even this, one of the funniest sequences is like a school sequence. A school gets a swarm of bees. This is all pretty early on. So if you don't like any spoilers, just watch it. This is not like full spoiler territory though. So it's just comedic. There's kids who've gotten stung. There's kids who are allergic and they're like behind bars and like separated. And it's just all played and timed for comedy. And it's just such a fun time. You just feel like I want to be there with Kateri and Matthew McConaughey's character, Amziah King, and just enjoying life in this community. Obviously, a lot of parallels to bees in this, right? With the queen and all the workers around her. Certainly, Amziah has a community around him. He's a born-again Christian in his community, and it's just kind of southern, friendly potlucks, things like that. And he's got his group of people that work with him that are live or die with him as well. So that's that. Now, I will say this turns quickly into, not quickly, I should say, this does eventually turn into a heist revenge-esque movie. But it does take about 40 minutes to get there. So I have seen complaints about the runtime feeling long. I personally enjoyed it and thought it was a great length. It made you sit with it. It made you get involved with these characters in a way that a shorter movie may not have done. But I'm going to go to in-depth spoilers now. So if you have already been too spoiled, sorry about that. But now, definitely, if you want to go see Amziah King, go see it now. So, in-depth analysis. One thing I thought was very interesting. Amziah dies like after the first 40 minutes. I did not anticipate that. You do, going back and watching the trailer, he's in the trailer. Like, they really disguised it pretty well. Maybe some people saw this, but he has a heart condition, and some thieves, theoretically the same thieves that stole that barrel of oil, a barrel of honey in the beginning, also steal all his bees and his livelihood. And he's saddened, and he has a heart attack, and he dies right out in the field where his bees used to be. So they have the funeral, and in his will, he left his beekeeping business, his honey business, to Kateri. And she takes that and she now has to carry the movie. And I will say, so Angelina Lookingglass, Native American descent, Kateri, this character, I was a little worried. Matthew McConaughey is such a presence. I love his character in so many things. Interstellar, Dazed and Confused. He's really one of the great actors that maybe sometimes gets a little, overlooked, but excellent. And he was carrying the movie. He was putting in such a strong performance. I was loving every minute of it. And then he dies. I'm like, uh-oh, here's where the momentum all shifts. It does shift, but I think it does it in a good way. Kateria, Angelina Lookingglass, hasn't been in a lot before, and she does a pretty good job carrying this middle part of the movie. Kurt Russell is also in this movie, but doesn't come until like the last 40 minutes. So for the middle group, she has to carry it. And what they do, and this definitely helps out for sure, is in this story, they put one of the most interesting, fun heist movies, like just smack dab in the middle of this. And she goes to try to find the bees that were stolen. She's in debt, so like she has to figure this out quickly, or the whole business is taken away from her. She does decide to keep the business going because that's what he would have wanted. Obviously, parallels here to her being the new queen bee and using that network, that community that's been built up to go and find this honey. They find it in the woods. They create a raft. They float the honey downstream, pick it up, get the bees, get the honey. And it's not ever fully clear if this is all his honey. There's at one point in time 6 crates of the bees, I believe, or boxes, whatever it is, were found with his inscribed letter in someone else's farm. But I don't think they even return it. So like, there's a little bit confusing here. But she essentially, Kateri ends up killing this guy by locking him in a hot room. He dies. His bees are out in the middle of nowhere. They pull off a heist to bring them in. And then they realize that I guess the family of the guy who died, they want to sell off his honey, sell off his beekeeping. They realize that she has it. She's like, oh, I thought they were abandoned. So she doesn't really get into much legal trouble there. But one of her friends, he was on parole, so he does get thrown back into jail. But she has to auction it off now, or it gets auctioned off, and the community once again comes around her, gives her money, ready to bid on this. And this is where Kurt Russell comes in, just has a ton of money, monopolizing the business, putting these small farmers out of business, and he comes in and buys up a ton and buys it all back, buys it all, right? So she is now stuck with him, seeming to have won, and it's just frustrating. And so then it turns into more of a revenge story, and she's kind of scoping him out at his church, at his business, different things. He also runs a castor oil a plant, which this is where it gets really interesting because she knows that castor, I believe it has ricin poisoning in it. The plant itself is unedible by itself. And so once again, coming back to the truth and lies of a potluck, she prepares a meal for the bedridden wife of Kurt Russell's character, Dob McCoy, puts some castor in there to kill her, and he takes it back to his wife. His wife eats it. She dies because there's castor in her system. They think the husband killed her, and now he's on the run, and there's a whole police chase. It's very exciting. I mean, this movie changes so many times. It goes from like a indie comedy, joy-filled experience to a heist movie to like a revenge action movie. And it really, it all ties together. And this is where some people might feel like it's a little too segmented, a little too long, not as flown together. And that's okay. It isn't, but it was so enjoyable to watch anyway that I don't mind. And essentially, she reclaims the business at the end, has it. Morality's a little interesting there. One of the things we do see, Amziah, when he's telling her about the beekeeping, he says there's like, it's not good or evil. It's like, there's a lot of interesting, it doesn't really go too much into the questions of morality. It's definitely more about the community and the parallel of her community, his community, finding a new queen, just like the bees, right? And she becomes the new queen. She has all these helpers. They get the business back, and she can start, harvesting all the honey again. And yeah, really interesting movie. There's a couple like elements of it. I think it's interesting that Amziah as a born again Christian gets portrayed in a very positive light, but then Kurt Russell's character, Don McCoy, I mean, this is like Bible Belt area, so he's also portrayed as a Christian, but more the performative, like he's exploitative behind everyone's backs. He's one step away from messing up, and that's truly like once he kills his wife. She actually kills his wife. That opens up the investigation into his business, and people start realizing how they knew all along. They just needed something to pin on him, and they find it with that. It's interesting for sure. I thought it was way better than I thought it was going to be. It's a great indie movie. It has a great feeling and atmosphere to it. Like, I would just love to live in that world. It's one of those movies where it's like, I've never lived in the countryside, never probably would, and yet you leave thinking like, I need to get myself a farm with some bees, and let's start living this peaceful, idyllic life, out on the farm. So it's interesting, really good though. So now we're going to talk about the movie that I was originally going to talk about for this review, and that is The End of Oak Street. So, End of Oak Street. Logline, we're back into the spoiler-free territory. This one is the Platt family bands together to navigate their new surroundings after a cosmic event transports their suburban neighborhood to someplace unknown. And it really is that simple. It's kind of just a little high-concept film, very much in debt to Spielberg and Jurassic Park. Set in 1982, you got some of the Stranger Things elements of that, kids on their bikes. There's actually a really cool, in their neighborhood, there's like the main streets, and then between the lots on the non-streets, there's like a dirt path that the kids are playing with. There's just a lot of interesting, it just feels very idyllic 80s neighborhood. The family, you've got Anne Hathaway once again, and Ewan McGregor, they're playing the parents. They got two kids, and it's the most Jurassic Park feeling movie in a long time. Certainly, we get people eaten. It is PG-13, but we are getting people eaten again. That is great. That's the first time we've really seen that since Fallen Kingdom, and it's the first time they've really captured the wonder of it so well since, like, Jurassic World did that fairly well, but definitely since the original trilogy and the original one, where you just felt that sheer awe and wonder of these beasts. You get a little bit of that again. And part of me is wondering, I mean, Jurassic World Rebirth 2, you take notes, they keep doing the same thing, dinosaurs on an island. And I'm sitting here thinking, this is such a creative new dinosaur movie. And it's really not that new. It's very reminiscent of everything old, but in a way that is satisfying to people watching it, that's reminiscent of those movies. It really is a love letter to Steven Spielberg and the Jurassic Park franchise. And David Robert Mitchell, yeah, great movie. For a horror director, was expecting a more horror bend. There's definitely a lot. J.J. Abrams was producing this. It feels like he was involved a lot. There's a lot of that Super 8. I mean, J.J. Abrams has a lot of similar style elements as Spielberg as well. Maybe not all the lens flares in this. There wasn't that. But you got that Super 8 feeling, the kids, the wonder. It's like a Jurassic Park movie. It's more Jurassic Park than last year's Rebirth or Dominion either. It felt great to see that and be in that neighborhood and be in that world. And so basically, premise here is that there's these little like wormholes that keep opening up and transporting like a prehistoric plant into someone's yard, or poop into Mel Jacobs' yard. He's like the annoying neighbor. And I will say, talk about owing it to Jurassic Park. The first thing that you see of the dinosaurs is their poop and a poop joke, just like one of the original Jurassic Park jokes that Ian Malcolm makes, right? So it owes a lot to Jurassic Park. It really is just a love letter to that. That being said, it still feels fresh enough that it does not feel like I'm just watching Jurassic Park. It's not a movie that makes me think, man, I need to go rewatch those. It's kind of like Disclosure Day, decent Spielberg movie, but when you watch it, you're like, man, I really want to go see those old Spielberg movies again. This one felt more Spielberg than Spielberg's own movie this year, and honestly felt the most like an old school blockbuster that we've gotten all summer, right? You've had some good superhero movies. The Odyssey is obviously a cultural phenomenon, but old school blockbusters, man, this feels like it, right? So it doesn't give me the horror that I wanted from a Jurassic Park movie or a dinosaur movie, but it did give me the wonder and the awe that I felt with the original Jurassic Park. And it's still, people were dying. There's still a threat. It felt good to see this again. So definitely a successful movie in my book. So we're going to get into some in-depth analysis here. I did want to say David Robert Mitchell, it's not just like a J.J. Abrams movie. This is going to have a couple spoilers, so warning, right? But David Robert Mitchell also has his own mark on this. My brother and I were watching this, and we were kind of tallying up all the similarities between this and It Follows, even though tonally very different. But we got Michigan plates, so Michigan again. We got above ground pools. We got people standing on roofs. We got water caustics. There's a scene where Anne Hathaway's sitting on the stairs of their flooded basement, and you see the water caustics on the ceiling. And even a character named Greg, the father, dying in this, which I'm going to get into a little more later because that I think was very important. But just kind of funny that David Robert Mitchell, even though it feels like Abrams, it feels like Spielberg, Mitchell's still putting his own stamp on this too. I mean, it's his writing, it's his directing. So I want to give credit to him there too. And it was fun to see some of the parallels of things that he must just enjoy. Just like, Miyazaki puts planes and pigs in so many of his movies. I guess above ground pools and water caustics are Robert Mitchell's thing. So pretty interesting. Anyway, more in depth with the premise. So Disney Splat, Hathaway's character, she's working on writing a book. Doesn't seem to be getting a lot of attention from her husband and is kind of secretly contemplating, or maybe not secretly, she kind of talks to him a little bit about it, but contemplating a divorce. The kids can definitely tell. Greg, the husband and father, he's working at pizza. He's working at other jobs. He's just trying to survive. He's hiding the pizza delivery sign with his son, trying to, avoid scaring his wife too much about him losing his job. And like I said earlier, you start noticing prehistoric items popping up with these wormholes in people's yards. And then one night, the whole world goes white and they all get transported. The entire several blocks of their neighborhood gets wormholed back in time into a prehistoric time. And you have dinosaurs running through these yards now, eating people. A lot of people get eaten. A lot of prehistoric animals, not just dinosaurs. There's a really cool scene. Probably my favorite scene is one where a giant snake slithers its way into a window and then is going down, just enormous. His tail is upstairs while his head is downstairs, silently creeping around this house. It's some excellent moments of suspense and terror. So they get to this other world, and then Starbuck, very important dog to the family, goes missing. They're like, is he safe? Obviously dinosaurs are eating people. One day, the kid sees Starbucks in his yard. A dinosaur chases him away. And so he and his sister end up going and chasing them. The parents obviously are worried about their kids, so they end up chasing the kids. And while the parents are finding the kids, they do run into one of these wormhole things, and they realize and postulate that maybe we can get back if we go through this wormhole. And so they're going through, and suddenly we do see a wonderful act of bravery. This is where Greg, the main character, dies. An Allosaurus comes out. He's attacking. He's about to get his wife, and Greg comes in and steers it clear, and then shockingly eats the father. And I thought this was a great moment, for a movie, and I know it's not a Jurassic Park movie, but so many Jurassic Park movies have no main characters die. No one important ever dies. And toward the end of this movie, you realize maybe it's not as important. But in the moment, if you don't know anything going into this, it's just like, oh, they actually killed off the father. This is not going to be the happy ending at the end that we thought it was going to be. Really good twist there. And glad that he gets eaten. So then the family does try to escape back through a wormhole. They find one floating, and, one of the kids tries to go through it, but it keeps appearing and disappearing, misses it, hits the ground. Pterosaur comes in. The dog Starbuck gets reunited with them as he's fending off this prehistoric bird. They climb back upstairs. These alligator creatures are everywhere trying to attack them. There's another character played by Jeanette Christensen. She's lost her family. She's now with them. And they're kind of all together, and they finally jump through that wormhole and appear back. And they get back there, and they look at the time, and they realize not only did this wormhole bring us back to the future, but it brought us back to the exact moment that everything happened that night, or a couple minutes prior. And so Anne Hathaway goes to a phone booth, calls the pizza delivery number to get her husband to get out of the dangerous area. The wormhole happens. And then later on, we see that she actually called several people, and she saved several families, including the annoying neighbor next door and the old lady with the prehistoric plant in the back of her house. Mrs. Huddleston and Mel Jacobs is the annoying neighbor. So Starbucks makes it back, and sure enough, the pizza delivery guy comes up, which is her husband. He's like, "What are you guys doing here?" Big white light comes, sucks up their neighborhood, and there's all the prehistoric animals now in the spot where their neighborhood was because they got swapped. Clearly, the government deals with that pretty quickly in this world now. Americans and the government outnumber the dinosaurs in that situation. And she's able to save several people with that. Ends up writing the book about this experience called The End of Oak Street, so kind of ties it down together with that. So the pizza delivery thing comes back. That's how she saves Greg. There's a lot of things here. Now, there's a couple of storylines that didn't quite pay off in this. One, there's a couple bullies. The only son there, apparently threw some stick through a kid's bike. So you could say that he's actually the one who's being the bully, right? Threw the kid, made him fly, and then that kid's brother comes and wants to beat him up. And you do see an interaction when they're in the prehistoric world where he's like wanting to beat this kid up, but the brother's like, it doesn't matter now, right? There's dinosaurs. It's crazy. We don't know if they ever really survive. We don't see that, and there's never really a satisfying, like some of these, like if there's a genuine bully, the bully gets eaten and you're like, oh, everyone's kind of happy, It's a little different because these are kids. Often those bullies in Jurassic Park are like adults who are evil, but we never see that really satisfied. And we do see, like, Anne Hathaway obviously appreciates her husband for fending off with the dinosaur, sacrificing his life for her family. And clearly they reconcile in a way with that. She asks him, hey, just whatever you can handle, I can handle too. Like, tell me about this. That being said, it feels like she grows and comes to appreciate him and what he's going through. I never know if he actually grew himself and learned to appreciate her and her skills. Maybe it's kind of just implied that it is, but we don't really see a satisfying moment of that, or at least not that I can remember. So that's interesting. There's also like slight lesbian vibes going on between Audrey Platt, the main daughter, the only daughter, played by Maisie Stella, and Jordan, the neighbor girl, played by Jeanette Christensen. Kind of shows them maybe like holding hands at the end. It's vague, and they don't never really explain what's going on there. It's probably made that way so it, you can sell it to China and stuff and they won't throw a fit. But that was just kind of an interesting side plot that is like, I got vibes from that, but it's never very explicit. So yeah, just really interesting there. So a couple things didn't really wrap up very well, but overall pretty interesting story. I do think there's some questions, obviously, with any of these time travel movies about the timeline. Like, clearly it seems to approach it more in a like time branching perspective, right? because she only saves her husband, which means in this other alternate timeline, that wormhole comes out and sucks just the wife and kids who are now alone in the prehistoric time and did not get saved by her husband. And now the husband that is with them and happily reunited with them didn't go through the growth experiences of sacrificing his life for his family. So there's definitely some curiosities there. It's not like Harry Potter has like the cyclical time loop where everything that you do or go back in time, there's now two of you in the same timeline. This one seems to approach it more like a branching. So somewhere all those people got eaten, somewhere all those people got saved. And clearly there's a world now where Anne Hathaway and her kids are stuck in a prehistoric world, maybe not surviving, probably not surviving. And yeah, and now they're getting to live with their dad, but it's not the same, quite the same dad that was with them. And we do see that she sees two dinosaurs having sex and takes a photo of her husband in front of that during the prehistoric time with like a Polaroid. That lasts the wormhole, and it's framed in their house someday. But it is kind of interesting because I don't think he would have any recollection of that since he got saved prior to the wormhole even opening. So definitely some weird time travel things in there. At the end of the day, it makes you feel good. It's a fun blockbuster. It's not a really in-depth psychological or philosophical analysis of, time and relationships or family dynamics. It's just a fun movie. So really enjoyed that. Overall, really enjoyed this movie. I think it's, like I said, best classic summer blockbuster this summer. It had the most feel of that. And it's definitely a love letter to Spielberg and the Jurassic Park movies. So if you like Jurassic Park, go see this. You'll probably enjoy this as well. It was a fun time. So I saw that pretty successful doubleheader, End of Oak Street and Rivals of Amziah King. Enjoyed both of them. Next week, not entirely sure what we'll be talking about. Maybe a little bit of Mutiny. I don't know if we'll get Tony released at our theater. It is just going to depend what comes out. But we'll be talking about that. And then on the August 28th weekend, probably talking about The Dog Stars, Ridley Scott's new film. So a couple good movies coming up to talk about. Exciting to see where things are going with news. X-Men is being cast really rapidly. A lot of stuff shaping up. And we're starting to come into the season of some good indie films, some good Oscar bait films. I'm excited for that. I'm excited to talk more about those as the blockbuster really kind of ended with End of Oak Street, and blockbuster summer ended there. So see you next week. Thanks for listening and have a great day. Goodbye.